Welcome to Brendan and Rob's top 5 board games that we have played this year. So just quick ruling on it is that instead of picking 5 board games that came out this year, it's the top 5 board games that we played this year. They can come out at any point, it's just what we had the most fun playing this year. So Brendan, I'll let you start. Your number 5.
So number 5 for me was Lords of Ziddit, which actually came out this year, and all of my games I played that I enjoyed this year actually came out this year, so that's handy for me. But you know, it's like I'm not saying anything about Lords of Ziddit. I just found that it was just a lot of fun to play. I found there was a lot of strategy that kept you engaged throughout the whole game. You're constantly thinking about your end objective, but you're trying to pay attention to what other people are playing, and it's not like, oh, I need the most of everything. It's, oh, I just need to not have the least of this, and then the next level is, oh, I need to not have the least of this, and then the third level is, I need the most of this. But if you're focusing too much on one list, then you're gonna lose the others. Like if you focus too much on the third objective, then you're not even going to get to the ruling on that, because you're going to get kicked out in the first objective because someone else has beaten you there. And then, so there's just a lot of strategy in playing each other that way, but the game itself is a lot of fun as well. So the playing right up to the end is fun, and the payoff is just great.
My number 5, technically it's a little bit on the cheating side, but whatever. It hasn't actually been released yet. Long story short is it was a Kickstarter game called Camp Grizzly. Now, the guy who made it got successfully kickstarted. I missed it, but he was selling promo copies, and I was fortunate enough that when I messaged him, he'd run out, but he was willing to get one printed for me and mail it out to me. Turned up the other day, and I love it. Very thematic. It steals a lot of horror tropes. What you're looking at is Friday the 13th. You're a bunch of counsellors at a camp, and there's a crazy serial killer trying to knock you off. It's very semi-cooperative in that you need to work together, but once you have the items to escape the camp, you don't need to wait for everyone. You can get the items and go for one of the finales and abandon everyone else if you think you can make it. Very thematic, fun, the cards are gory, it's full of horror tropes. If you're a horror fan, you'll recognise more than a handful of it. It's brilliant. I think it's a brilliant game. The only downside is it relies a little bit too much on random dice rolls. That's the only downside to it.
4 is a game that I thought would be higher, but after everything I played this year, still an amazing game, and definitely in my top 10 games, board games. But it sits in at number 4 for me, and that's Dead of Winter. Now, Dead of Winter is the best way I can describe it is Shadows of Camelot on steroids. There's a lot more to it than Shadows of Camelot. Like, it takes the foundation that Shadow of Camelot builds with that cooperative, really tough game with a trader, but then builds up. It turns it up to 11. You've got a lot more things to worry about. You've got zombies, but then you've also got other survivors, and then you've got each other with there potentially being a traitor, and you don't really know if the traitor's being a traitor because all your objectives are played face down, and you have objectives for the turn, and then you've got the clock. Like, there's so much in the game, but it never feels overwhelming. Actually, yes, it does, but more in the sense that you're getting overwhelmed by zombies, and less that the game itself is overwhelming. So that's my number 4, Dead of Winter.
There was another Kickstarter game for me called Chaos Ball. This one I'm very fortunate enough to have gotten in on the Kickstarter. It is a futuristic sports combat game. Ideally it's designed for 1 versus 1, but you can do it with 3 or 4 players. Each player will pick a team. Every team plays and looks very different. All the minis are amazing for this. It's the company that makes them is called Cool Mini or Not. They've done a slew of games like Zombicide. They've got a new one out now called Arcadia. The minis for this are stunning. There's no other way to describe it. But the way this game works is that you're fighting for possession of a ball to try and score on various little scoring mounds. And it's very card driven. So you'll play a card face down, the opposing player will play a card face down, and when you reveal it, it goes by the value of the card plus what your team's stats are. But there's also cards you can play that are like upset cards, which no matter what the other guy plays, you'll beat them. There's cheat cards. It's very strategic, and it's not like you can have a handful of high numbered cards and think, oh, well, I've got free reign, because once you've played a certain card, you can't play it again for that period. So it does lend into a lot of strategy as well. But it's fun, and for a game that I have not actually won at all yet, and I'm putting it as number 4 and saying that I had the great experience with it that I have, it shows. Like, if I've never won a game and I love this thing, then yeah, there's something there.
Number 3 for me was Ultimate Werewolf Deluxe Edition. Now this was a Kickstarter that I kickstarted. It's actually a deluxe edition of a game that's come out previously, but they've added a lot of cards and artwork to the game, and the box that it comes in is really cool. And it has an artifacts expansion as well that adds a lot to it. And to me, this is the ultimate party board game. It plays up to 80 people, though I would not say to play with that many people. It's just there's just so much in it that you can keep playing and never really experience it all. I have a group of friends that I just love to play with on a Sunday night. Just one game or two, and it's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of lying to each other, and you learn little things about each other, and it's great. And there's like a power that makes someone have to turn around for the whole round, so you're trying to argue with everyone, but you're not facing them, so you don't know really what's going on. And then there's another power where you have to leave the room for the day, but you can't die, so that's really strategic. And like, I've heard Resistance is a better game, but Resistance only plays to 8, whereas Werewolf accommodates a whole party. So for me, as a party game, Ultimate Werewolf Deluxe Edition stands above the rest.
The only thing I've ever had against Werewolf, though, is that when someone gets lynched and they're out of the game, and especially if you've got a good number of players, it can leave them doing nothing for a long time.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And that's, I think the beauty of like our group that plays is that we're all interested in everyone, like invested in what everyone else is doing. So like, even if I'm a villager and I get lynched by my fellow villagers, I want to see who the werewolves are, and I want to see why they did it, and I'm invested in the game to see if like my team still wins. That being said, I wouldn't recommend playing with 80 players, because then you would be sitting there for like 2 hours waiting for another game. Yeah, but no, it's if you have the right group of people, it's fine. If someone's mildly interested, though, I can see them easily getting bored.
True. Number 3 was Dogs of War. Now, this is another Kickstarter. There's a bit of a theme with my games. Mainly I should stay away from Kickstarter. But Dogs of War, it's very much like what you described Dead of Winter as. If there's a trader, that there's a lot of backstabbing and cheap shots. Dogs of War is a game where I think it's up to 5 players. I've only ever played it with 4. There's 6 houses that are at odds with each other. You don't play as one of the houses, you play as a mercenary, and you invest your soldiers to the different fronts where the houses are fighting each other. And basically you're trying to gain influence. The better a house does, the more influence that you get from it, the more the influence is actually worth at the end of the day. And it's one of those games where, yeah, you can screw people so much. Like, one game I played, 2 of my friends sided with one house over another that didn't have anyone against it, but they only committed low soldiers to it. I had siege machines. On the last round, I threw all my stuff against them and stole the victory, basically screwed them out of points, and made 2 enemies for the rest of the game. It's fun. It's one of those things, if you're with the right group of people that don't take it seriously, that don't see the backstabbing as personal, that it's a game, you're there to have fun, and that's the nature of the game. You backstab, it's not personal, it's fun. If you have those group of people that recognise that, you're going to have a good time with this. If you have people that are going to get snarky and whingy and hold grudges, avoid it. But for me, we had a great time with this. One of my other friends said this was his number 1. So, highly recommended. I don't know if it's out for general retail just yet, but it should be soon. But I recommend giving it a look. It is definitely fun.
My number 2 is the Castles of Mad King Ludwig, or Castles of the Mad King Ludwig. I'm not quite sure which way it goes. Now, this is number 2 for me, just in terms of how deep the strategy goes. Now, a lot of games kind of have one sort of thing you need to focus on, and that's it. But Castles of the Mad King Ludwig has one thing you need to focus on, but you need to be aware of everything going on in the game. So essentially, when you are the master builder, you get to choose your room to build in your castle last. So you get to choose from the pool of rooms last, but you get to set how much everything costs, and everyone pays you for those rooms. So if you're aware of what other people are building, you put those ones high. You put those ones expensive, because then they have to pay that much for them, or they have to wait till later. And if they choose to wait, you can choose to just screw them over and buy that room. You can choose to set it high, and then when everyone pays you for all the other rooms, you just go and buy that room away from them. But as well as that, you need to be aware of your cards in your hand and your objectives. And it's just a lot of zany fun. Like, you just end up with these crazy castles, and there's just a lot of strategy, really, really deep for a really basic sort of game. Like, the game itself is basic, so basic that anyone can enjoy it, but the skill level, like, I think the skill ceiling is really, really, really high, and there's a lot of room to grow.
So, like, easy to learn, hard to master?
Exactly, yeah. If you play with someone who's played it 50 times and you're playing it for the first time, I don't see you winning. But in saying that, it's so easy to just pick up and learn. Yeah.
Definitely give it a look.
Yeah.
My number 2, not to be confused with Brendan's version of Werewolf, is called One Night Ultimate Werewolf. So while it is essentially the same thing, it does twist the mechanics around a little bit. So first thing is that you do not need a moderator to run the game. You can get an app that will run through everything, and I really recommend the app because some of the roles, the order is very important, how it works. But essentially you get a card drawn or given to you. There's 3 cards in the middle of the table, so there's always 3 cards more left over than the amount of players. So if you've got 10, there's 13 cards. And what role you start with, you might not necessarily have at the end of the round. So everyone closes their eyes, you follow the instructions. There will be people who will swap cards with players, there will be ones who swap other players' cards, there will be one who blind picks from the middle of the table. And then it just comes down to deduction and lying. So if you started off as a werewolf and someone says that they swapped your card with someone else, then you know you're not the werewolf anymore, they are. But the person who claims that they swapped the card, are they telling the truth? So again, it's how good a liar you are, how quick on your feet you are, the betrayal, the backstabbing's there. Again, we've had fun with this. This was a game I bought just because I thought, oh, you know, what the hell, this is 10 minutes at most per game, bit of filler at the end of the night, and we spent an entire night playing this and nothing else. So for something that started off as filler that ate up like a 3 to 4 hour gaming session, it's something is definitely there. So check it out. If you like Werewolf, you'll like this.
Number 1 now, and so my number 1 game that I played for the first time this year was Sheriff of Nottingham. Now this game is lying to your friends incarnate. That is the gist of this game.
It's a bit of a theme here.
Yeah, I do enjoy like these sort of games. It has a coup feel to it, but I feel like there's more going on. There's a bit more strategy, and so it's almost like Bluff. Liar, or whatever you want to call it. The one, not Liars Dice, but the one where like you're putting cards down in the middle of the table and you're saying, oh, 2 2s, and someone can call BS, or they can just leave it. And it's very much like that. Pretty much you're trying to get trade goods through the sheriff. So you're trying to get them over the border, and the sheriff is trying to stop you. And so he can choose to look in. So they're in sealed bags, and I might say I have 3 apples, but really I have 2 apples and an ale in there. And ale is contraband, so I'm not allowed to take that across the border. But even then, I might just have 2 apples and a bread, which is not contraband. But I'm still lying. And then so the sheriff can choose to open the bag and have a look. And if he looks and I'm telling the truth, he has to pay me for those goods, and I still get to keep those goods. If I'm lying, though, I have to pay him the price, the liar's price, which is also on the card, to him. So it's a bit of like, I'm trying to work out who the liars are here. I'm trying to work out what cards you've picked up, because you can see what some cards people pick up. And there's just a lot of like deduction and reasoning in everything you do. But on top of that, you can also be a corrupt sheriff and just say, give me 5 gold, I won't open your bag. And so you can go, I know you're lying. I know that you're lying. Give me 10 gold, I won't touch your bag. And then you can suss out, they'll be like, no, open it, I don't care. Or they'll be like, 8. And then you know they're lying, and then you're like, okay, I'm just going to open your bag straight out. So like, it's a lot of fun like that, and it's a lot of playing each other, and it's just, yeah, it's great fun. It doesn't take too long, unlike my explanation of it. Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. Sheriff of Nottingham.
Number 1, Brendan's already said it, was Dead of Winter. This game was, for me, very anticipated, and when it got here, it lived up to every expectation. Because Brendan gave a detailed explanation of it, I won't go too far into it, but I will touch on the Crossroads cards. They are the selling point for it. So at the start of each round, a Crossroads card is drawn. The player who has the card, though, does not tell anyone what triggers it. If it does trigger, he stops gameplay, and then something will happen. So one that's come up quite commonly is that a flatbed pulls up to the colony filled with survivors. you've got to make a choice now whether or not to take them into the colony or whether to shun them. So it's moral dilemmas, and there will be pluses and minuses for everything, or usually everything. Some of them you can get away scot-free, but others will be bring people in, but there's more mouths to feed, but you've got more characters. Send them out, you lose morale because people are found dead on the side of the road a couple of days later. So it's very thematic, despite the fact that there is an oversaturation of zombie games out there in the market at the moment. The zombies feel very much second nature to this, and it really comes down to, it's more of a social experiment, really. It's like how you interact with people, whether you're lying, whether you're the traitor, if there is even a traitor. So it's fun, it's deep, the zombies don't overwhelm it, there's enough content there to keep people invested, it's very thematic. Again, very recommended. The only downside is it's actually really hard to get a hold of. I was lucky I got one sent over from Indianapolis this year. Brendan, I believe, is still waiting for his copy.
Still waiting for mine, even though I pre-ordered it, so there's that. I feel like I think I heard that there was a problem with the Australian shipment and not all the stores got theirs, and unfortunately the one I pre-ordered from didn't get any copies, so yeah, I'm just waiting.
Hopefully.
Yeah, here's hoping.
2015.
Yeah.
So that is us for our board games for this year, guys. So hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you in the new year.
Yep, see you later.